Have you ever wanted to look into retro games but aren't sure where to begin? Do you ever wonder which classic games stand the test of time and which ones don't hold up? These are some questions that have been bothering me for a while now, and I think it's about time to do something about it. So I'm going through gaming's history one game at a time to try to find the best games of all time. Welcome to the Gaming Archaeologist. The Legend of Zelda series. It's one of gaming's longest running and most iconic series, and it's a personal favorite of mine. It certainly changed and evolved over the years, but it all started in 1986 with the original game for the NES. It was revolutionary for its time, but how well does it hold up now? Let's find out. Okay, I'm just going to put my cards on the table. I don't like this game, and I've never liked this game. I respect it, and I can appreciate the impact it had, and how it was a pioneer of the genre. As a piece of gaming history, it's actually pretty fascinating. But as an actual game, I just don't think it's very good. Super Mario Bros. Aged well largely because it was linear and simple. The Legend of Zelda, by contrast, is open-ended and much more complicated. While this made it innovative for its time, its ideas weren't very polished, and the technology at the time wasn't good enough to really make it work. The Zelda series is known for its sense of adventure, the wonder you get from exploring a brand new world. But I really don't get that from this game. Part of it has to do with the gameplay, which I'll get into a bit, but part of it is the visuals. Hyrule is pretty bleak and empty, and it doesn't really feel like I'm on an epic adventure, it just feels like I'm wandering around a barren wasteland. There also aren't very many NPCs, and the handful that the game has don't have any real personality, and are either shopkeepers or just give you incredibly cryptic hints. And of course, this brings me to my biggest issue with the game. It doesn't explain anything. This wouldn't be a real problem if the game was fun to play and felt like a real adventure. But it doesn't, at least to me, and so the highly open-ended nature of the game is just downright infuriating. The game doesn't explain how any of the items work, where you need to go, how to find secrets, nothing. And I'm not saying that the game needed to have an elaborate and hand-holding tutorial. There are ways you can teach the player the rules of the game just by how the game is designed, providing a tutorial while not being overt about it. But this game doesn't do any of that. It doesn't have any real pacing at all, and you can only find the way forward through an insane amount of trial and error. Assuming, of course, that you don't use a guide. If you do, then the game actually becomes tolerable. In fact, the developers knew that the game was borderline unplayable without some outside assistance, and so the original game came bundled with a map and a guide that provided tips and tricks to make getting through the game a little more manageable. If having a guide was all that was necessary to fix the game, then I probably wouldn't mind it too much. But even with the guide, I just don't find the game very engaging or fun. The puzzles are pretty simplistic, and the combat is clunky and awkward. The game also gets very hard in the later dungeons, and not in a way that feels fair, as getting through fights often seems to be more of a matter of luck than skill. The game does have its moments. The music is pretty memorable, and it is neat to see how many staples of the Zelda series stretch all the way back to the very first game. But it's a chore to get through, and even with a guide, it's still pretty tedious and frustrating. So, does it hold up? Overall, I would have to say no. I don't think it's aged very well, especially when compared with later games like A Link to the Past. It may have been amazing for its time, and its importance in gaming history cannot be understated. But this is not a game that I could recommend to anyone looking for a genuinely good and enjoyable experience. My final score for The Legend of Zelda is a 4 out of 10. I imagine this review will piss some people off, but I'm sorry, that's my opinion on the game. So what do you think? Do you think the original Zelda is a timeless classic, or do you agree with me and think it's a bit of an archaic mess? Whatever your thoughts, let me know in the comments below. The next game I will be reviewing is the original Mega Man. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.